They thought betrayal would break you. They thought walking away would leave you crawling in the dust. But here's the truth. When they cut you, they didn't end your life. They ended their access to it. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been left in silence, with no explanation, no closure, just the echo of your own heartbeat in an empty room? That silence, it feels unbearable. Yet, it's the birthplace of a power you never knew you had. I remember one night in Kai's old workshop. Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 tiny drums. I asked him why he never fought back against the man who betrayed him when he was young. He looked at me with those eyes, calm but heavy with a storm he no longer carried. And he said, "The night he betrayed me, I almost burned his shop to the ground. The torch was in my hand, but I realized, if I lit that fire, I would be burning myself too, so I chose silence. Not because I was weak, but because I refused to become him." That's when I understood. Silence is not surrender. It is transformation. It's not about letting them win. It's about refusing to keep playing their game. This video is not about revenge. It's about something far more devastating to those who tried to break you. Your rise in silence. We will walk through 8 rules. Lessons Kai lived, lessons I witnessed, and lessons you can embody. So that the next time betrayal knocks at your door, you don't collapse. You rise. So lean in. Take a breath. Because by the end of this, you'll realize what Kai once whispered to me. The greatest punishment for betrayal is not revenge. It's your rebirth. The first rule: pain is the first teacher. Betrayal rarely comes from a stranger. It almost always comes from the ones you trusted with your heart, your loyalty, your future. That's why it doesn't just hurt. It rewires something deep inside you. Kai once told me about his first business partner. They were just 2 young men, full of fire, trying to carve out a place in the world. Their workshop smelled of fresh pine and warm ash. Their hands were blistered, their backs sore, but their laughter was loud, because they believed they weren't just shaping furniture, they were shaping their future. One night, Kai discovered the truth. Every contract, every deal, every ounce of trust had been signed behind his back, under his partner's name. His sweat, his vision, his faith, all stolen with a stroke of ink. He said it felt like the air was sucked from his lungs. He didn't scream. He didn't fight. He just sat on the cold floor of that half-built workshop, rain dripping through the roof, each drop landing on his skin like time reminding him, "You are alone now." And in that silence, one thought replayed endlessly. Maybe I was the fool. Maybe I deserved this. Isn't that what pain does? It doesn't just wound. It whispers. It brands your soul with lies. You were blind. You were weak. You should have known better. And if you let it, that whisper becomes poison. The betrayal itself doesn't finish you. The voice it leaves inside does. The Stoics warned us, pain is never in the event. It's in our judgment of it. The betrayal itself did not define Kai. What defined him was his response. He could have let it become a prison, circling the same questions forever. Why me? How could they? Instead, he let it become a teacher. That night, pain tore away his illusions. The illusion that loyalty is guaranteed, the illusion that good intentions will always be reciprocated, the illusion that trust alone is enough to build security. Pain forced him to see clearly. People fail not because you were unworthy, but because they were unready to carry the weight of your trust. And clarity, though brutal, is liberating. Kai told me later, "That night I lost a partner, but I found my sight." He realized he had built his foundation not on his own integrity, but on another man's promises. Pain stripped that away and demanded he rebuild, not weaker, but sharper, not softer, but wiser. Here's the truth you may resist. Pain is unavoidable, but misery is optional. You cannot choose who betrays you, but you can choose whether that betrayal becomes your chain or your forge. Think about your own life. Maybe it wasn't a business partner. Maybe it was a friend who vanished the moment you succeeded. A lover who left without a word. A colleague who smiled in your face, but cut you down behind closed doors. The wound was sharp, yes, but the deeper damage was what followed. The way you doubted yourself. The way you replayed every memory, searching for what you did wrong. That's the real battlefield, not the betrayal itself, but your mind in the silence afterward. Betrayal plants a question. Am I enough? And if you let it, that question chains you tighter than the betrayal ever could. But here is where philosophy meets reality. You are not what they took. You are what remains. They can take your trust, your time, your effort, but they cannot touch the capacity in you to rise again. Practical action. The next time pain strikes, don't drown it in distractions. Take a pen and answer 3 questions. What did I give that was real? What did they take that was temporary? What still remains untouched inside me? Do this, and you'll discover something powerful. What they broke was never the whole of you. So let me ask you, when pain knocked on your door, did you let it chain you? Or did you let it teach you? Because one day, like Kai, you'll look back and realize the cruelest blow you ever received was also the hand that shaped you. The second rule, the quiet storm inside you. They expected rage. They expected chaos. They expected a broken man to scream, to curse, to throw stones at the world. But what they never expected was silence. When Kai's partner betrayed him, the whole village gossiped. Some laughed at his collapse. Others whispered pity. Everyone waited for the explosion. They wanted to see him storm through the streets, fists clenched, anger echoing in the market. But Kai gave them nothing. No accusations, no explanations, just disappearance. In truth, he wasn't hiding. He was building. By day, he worked odd jobs, repairing roofs, hauling timber, carrying loads for people who once looked down on him. By night, he walked alone into the forest, only an axe and a lantern in his hands. The trees stood like silent witnesses. He cut, measured, carved, not for clients, not for applause, but because his hands had to move or his heart would stop. At night, when the fire burned low, he sat by the embers, palms blistered, face lit by shifting flames. At first, the silence was unbearable. Betrayal replayed in his head like a cruel song stuck on repeat. But over time, something shifted. The fire no longer reminded him of what he had lost. It became a mirror of what he could still create. That was the storm, not the kind that shouts in the streets, a storm that brewed inside, quiet but relentless, like pressure building deep beneath the earth. From the outside, Kai looked broken, but inside, he was gathering a strength no one could measure. Here's the paradox. Silence is not weakness, it is construction. It looks passive, but beneath it, your soul is sharpening edges, building walls, planting roots. And those who betrayed you cannot see it. That's what terrifies them. Because toxic people thrive on your reaction. Your anger feeds them. Your explanations give them control. But silence starves them. They can't twist words you never said. They can't manipulate a reply you never gave. Kai once told me, "The most dangerous man is the one who has nothing left to prove." And that's what silence gave him. 1 year later, when he returned to the village, people expected a bitter man. Instead, they saw calm, a steady gaze, a presence that unnerved them more than rage ever could. That was his storm made flesh. Now think of your own life. Maybe you've had that text filled with accusations, daring you to respond. Or that colleague who spread lies. Or that family member baiting you into endless arguments. You wanted to fire back, to defend your truth. But have you ever chosen silence instead? At first it burns. Your pride begs for release. But then clarity comes, and you realize they've lost their grip. That's the quiet storm beginning inside you. And let's be honest, I once wasted an entire night writing the perfect angry reply. Paragraphs, metaphors, even dramatic punctuation. By sunrise, I deleted it all. Silence actually saved me from starring in my own soap opera. The Stoics called this self-mastery. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Choosing silence isn't avoidance, it is strength. It's saying, "My peace matters more than your chaos." Practical action. Try this for 1 week, the 24-hour rule. Whenever someone provokes you, don't reply instantly. Wait a full day. In those 24 hours, watch your emotions change. The fire that felt like an inferno will cool, and most of the time silence will be the only answer you need. And here's another practice. Tonight, before bed, give yourself 5 minutes of total silence. No phone, no music, no noise, just sit and breathe. At first it feels empty, but soon you'll hear it, the quiet storm of healing, of rebuilding, of becoming untouchable. So let me ask you, will you waste your energy shouting into the noise? Or will you let silence build the storm that transforms you? Because the day you choose the second path, like Kai did in the forest, is the day you stop being broken and start becoming unshakable. If this storm inside you feels familiar, tap that like button, not for me, but as a silent promise to yourself that you will master it. The third rule: their insecurity, not your identity. Not every betrayal comes from hatred. Sometimes it comes from fear. Fear of your growth, fear of your boundaries, fear that you've become someone they can no longer control. Maybe you had a friend who once cheered every step you took. You laughed together, shared late-night secrets, carried each other through storms. But then, something changed. You decided to break the loop. You chose to read instead of gossip, to take care of your health instead of wasting nights in distraction. And instead of clapping for you, they grew silent. One day you posted a photo, smiling, holding a book, proud of your new journey. They didn't say a word. Worse, you overheard your name twisted in another conversation. "She's changed. She's too busy for us now." That's how betrayal from insecurity works. It doesn't stab you in the chest. It withdraws slowly, twists quietly, until you start doubting yourself. And the knife isn't their words. It's the question they plant inside you. Am I too much? Did I do something wrong? But here's the truth. Their leaving was never about your failure. It was about their fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of facing their own stagnation when your growth became a mirror. Some people would rather betray you than confront the reflection you give them. This is the inversion most people miss. You didn't push them away by rising. They pulled themselves away because they couldn't rise with you. Betrayal is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their insecurity. The Stoics saw this clearly. When someone acts against you, it's because they judged it right for themselves. That judgment comes from their perception, not your truth. Their betrayal says everything about their limits and nothing about your value. Think of the coworker who mocked you for staying late because your discipline exposed their laziness. Think of the partner who laughed at your dream because your vision forced them to face their own fear of trying. Their betrayal wasn't a verdict on your soul. It was a defense mechanism. And here's the real trap. If you swallow their fear, you begin to live small. You shrink yourself so they won't feel threatened. That's the slowest death. Dying piece by piece so someone else can stay comfortable. Don't let that happen. I'll admit, I've done it. There was a season I downplayed my wins, even joked about my own progress, just to keep others comfortable. But here's the irony. They didn't respect me more for shrinking. They only felt more entitled to stay the same. That's why you must remember, your growth is not an attack. Their insecurity is not your responsibility. Practical action. Open a notebook. Write down 3 betrayals that made you doubt yourself. For each one, rewrite the truth. This wasn't my weakness, it was their fear. Keep that page close. When insecurity whispers in your ear, let that truth answer louder. And here's another challenge. The next time someone pulls away because of your growth, don't chase. Instead, double down on the very habit that triggered their fear. If they mocked your boundaries, reinforce them. If they sneered at your ambition, aim even higher. Their insecurity should never shrink you. It should accelerate you. And let's be real, I once caught myself rewriting a text 3 times, trying to sound less confident so I wouldn't intimidate someone. By the end, I laughed at myself. Shrinking doesn't protect you. It only insults the gift you've been given. So let me ask you, how long will you keep living for the comfort of others? The question isn't when you'll stop. The question is, when will you finally start living for yourself? Because here's the twist. The real punishment for betrayal isn't what happens to them. The real punishment is what happens to you if you stay stuck. The 4th rule, indifference is supreme power. Revenge feels tempting. The fantasy of striking back, of making them feel what you felt. It burns hot. But here's the paradox. The real devastation doesn't come from revenge. It comes from indifference. Kai once told me about the day his old partner returned, years after the betrayal. The man had lost everything: money, reputation, trust. He stumbled into Kai's workshop, the smell of sawdust and fresh pine thick in the air, and begged, "Let's rebuild, like the old days." Kai didn't argue. He didn't accuse. He didn't list the contracts stolen or the nights of hunger he endured. He simply turned back to the plank of wood he was carving, pressed his chisel once and said nothing. That silence, the refusal to even grant anger, was sharper than any blade. The man left that day with bent shoulders, carrying a weight heavier than Kai's words ever could have given him. That's indifference. It isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the decision that someone no longer deserves your energy, your explanation, or your voice. And let's be real for a second. Revenge is like junk food. It's like ordering greasy fast food at 2 a.m. Heaven for 5 minutes, then misery the next morning. It smells good when you're angry. It feels satisfying in the moment. But soon after, you're left heavy with regret, asking yourself, why did I even do that? Indifference, on the other hand, is like clean water. It doesn't give you the rush, but it keeps you alive. Here's why it's so powerful. Manipulators thrive on your reaction. Rage feeds them. Arguments give them stage time. Justification makes them feel important. But indifference? Indifference is the locked door they can never break. When you no longer seek revenge, no longer chase their apology, no longer need them to understand, that's when they lose their grip completely. Marcus Aurelius knew this truth. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Indifference is not passivity. It's supreme strength, the strength of choosing peace over drama, restraint over chaos. But let's be honest, indifference isn't easy. Your pride will whisper, say something, show them, prove you're not weak. That voice craves reaction. Yet the higher voice inside you, the one that loves peace, knows the truth. Every reaction is an invitation back into the very prison you escaped. Think of it this way. Have you ever seen someone try to bait you into a pointless argument? Maybe an ex sends that, "I just hope you're happy" text. Or a coworker makes a passive-aggressive comment during a meeting. Your blood boils, your fingers hover over the keyboard, ready to clap back. But then, you don't. You close the app. You sip your coffee. And suddenly, they're left arguing with ghosts. That silence echoes louder than any speech. Practical action. Practice what I call the locked door rule. When someone who hurt you tries to re-enter your life, through a message, a rumor, a baited argument, pause and ask, does opening this door bring me peace? Or does it only restart the cycle? If it does not bring peace, the door stays locked. And no, you don't owe them a 5-paragraph essay explaining why. Silence is your best locksmith. And here's another exercise. For 1 week, notice the moments when you're tempted to over-explain yourself. Instead, say less. Let your actions, your presence, your growth speak in volumes words never could. Because indifference is not about ignoring others, it's about honoring yourself. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped giving energy to those who never deserved your voice? Because the secret Kai showed me that day in the workshop is this. The greatest punishment is not revenge. The greatest punishment is realizing they no longer matter. The 5th rule. Karma is cause and effect, not magic. We love to picture karma like a movie. Loud thunder, flashing lightning, instant payback. They hurt you, life strikes them. Roll credits, but reality? Karma doesn't work like Netflix. There's no autoplay revenge episode waiting for you at midnight. It's slower, quieter, and far more precise. Think about that colleague who lied about you at work. For a while, they looked untouchable. Promotions, praise, applause. And you? You sat there, hands clenched, a hollow weight pressing against your chest. A question burned inside. Does no one see the truth? It felt unbearable. But months later, the cracks began to show. Their emails didn't line up. Their stories contradicted themselves. The trust they borrowed ran out. Suddenly, the same doors that once opened for them closed quietly. Not because the universe cursed them, but because you can't plant seeds of deceit and expect a harvest of trust. Or picture a relationship. Someone cheats, manipulates, walks away without closure. At first, their life looks like an upgrade. Glossy photos, new love, new vacations. You scroll, your heart aching, wondering if they've won. But time reveals patterns. New arguments, repeated betrayals, the same wounds resurfacing. Because you don't escape the person you are. You carry yourself into every new story. That's not karma as punishment. That's consequence as design. The Stoics never imagined karma as magic. They saw it as natural law. Seneca once said, "Every guilty person is his own hangman." What does that mean? The rope is their own habits, the lies, the selfishness, the lack of integrity. These don't disappear. They grow heavier, wrapping tighter, until one day they trip on the very cord they've been dragging behind them. But here's the trap. Waiting for karma becomes its own slow poison. You keep scrolling their feed, asking mutual friends for updates, secretly hoping for bad news. And without realizing it, you're still chained to them. They're no longer betraying you. Yet, you're betraying yourself, handing them control of your peace. That's why the real question isn't, when will karma catch them? It's, what am I planting right now? Practical action. Flip the script. Instead of waiting for them to reap the storm, plant your own harvest. Write down one action today that builds your future. Exercise. Start that course. Save a little money. Call a real friend. Let their betrayal become the soil that grows your prosperity. Don't wait for life to punish them. Use the pain to prosper yourself. And here's a lighter practice. The next time you're tempted to stalk their social media for proof of karma, laugh softly at yourself, close the app, and redirect that energy. Go for a walk. Cook a meal. Drink water. Their curated holiday photos aren't karma. They're just a filter. And honestly, half the time the biggest karma is realizing they needed 3 apps, ring lights, and the perfect angle just to look happy. Because real karma isn't about sitting front row to their collapse. It's about rising so high they can't even reach your stage. Your peace, your progress, your laughter. That's karma's quiet smile. So let me ask you, whose downfall are you still waiting to see? When your own life is waiting for you to finally rise. If these words cut close, share this with someone who needs to stop waiting for karma and start planting their own harvest. Your share might be their turning point. The 6th rule. Revenge costs too much. Revenge always looks sweet from a distance. You imagine the moment they taste their own medicine, the look on their face when justice finally flips. It promises power, but in reality, it empties you. Kai once told me there was a night, right after the betrayal, when rage nearly swallowed him whole. He stood outside his old partner's shop, the torch in his hand burning hot against the night air. The flame licked at the dry wood, hungry for destruction. One spark, and everything the man had stolen, the contracts, the lies, the laughter, would turn to ash. His breath was ragged, his fists trembling, his heart pounding with vengeance. For a moment, he imagined the satisfaction, the fire lighting the sky, his betrayer standing in ruins, justice paid in full. The temptation was intoxicating. But then, a piece of ember snapped and fell onto his hand. The searing pain raced up his arm like a warning. In that sting, Kai saw something terrifying. The fire wasn't just ready to consume his enemy. It was ready to consume him, his dignity, his peace, his future. All of it would burn in the same blaze. His jaw clenched. The rage screamed, "Do it! Make him pay!" But another voice whispered back, "Drop it, or you'll burn too." And in the silence of that night, Kai let go. The torch fell to the dirt with a hiss, sparks fading into the darkness. He turned away, not weaker, but freer. Because here's the truth. Revenge doesn't free you. It chains you to the very person you want to escape. It forces you to rehearse their betrayal, to feed the fire again and again until you've built your own prison out of rage. And let's be honest, if revenge really worked, most of us would have burned down at least 3 offices and 2 exes by now. But all that leaves is ashes, and ashes can't build a future. The Stoics understood this clearly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Real justice isn't in destroying them. It's in transforming yourself. Your growth, your silence, your peace. That's the scar they'll never heal from. Think about it. You fire off that angry text, and for 5 minutes it feels amazing. But then you're back in the drama, tangled in the same cycle. Or you post that bitter status online. Sure, it stings them for a moment, but now you've handed them more of your attention, your time, your energy. Revenge doesn't heal you. It keeps the wound bleeding. Here's the paradox. You think revenge gives closure, but closure doesn't come from destruction. It comes from building something they can never touch, your rebirth. Practical action. Tonight, take one revenge fantasy you've carried, maybe proving someone wrong, maybe making them regret, and write it down. Then beside it, write one transformation you could choose instead. Replace "I'll make them pay" with "I'll make myself rise." Every time the fantasy returns, remind yourself, my energy belongs to my future, not to their downfall. And here's another practice. The next time you feel the urge to clap back, pause and ask yourself, will this restore my peace or restart the cycle? If it doesn't bring peace, drop the torch, because revenge is expensive, and the price is your peace. So let me ask you, what torch are you still holding in your hands, and how much longer will you let it burn you? Here's the twist most people miss. The way you walk away can wound deeper than any revenge. The 7th rule, the silent exit, is the loudest statement. Not all battles are won by fighting. Some are won by walking away, quietly, without a word, without an audience. Because sometimes the loudest echo is silence. Let me tell you about Sarah. Back in university, I didn't know her closely, but years later, one of my classmates told me the story that changed how I see silence forever. Sarah had been trapped for years in a toxic relationship. You know the kind. Gaslighting, guilt-tripping, betrayal dressed up as love, and a carousel of empty apologies. She tried everything. Long explanations, tearful defenses, one last chance after another. Every time she thought she had reached the final storm, another wave would come crashing down. And then, one morning, something inside her snapped, but not in rage, not in chaos, in clarity. She didn't scream, she didn't beg, she didn't even say goodbye. She just quietly packed her bag, placed the apartment key on the table, and walked out the door. No closure text, no emotional essay, no dramatic announcement on social media, just silence. At first, her partner laughed. She'll come back, she always does. But weeks turned into months. Still no answer, still no reaction. And that silence cut sharper than any words ever could. Because words invite debate. Silence ends the game. That's the paradox of the silent exit. In the moment, it feels small. You doubt yourself. You wonder, should I explain? Should I defend my side? Should I warn them what they're losing? But silence carries its own thunder. It says, I no longer need your validation. I refuse to keep fighting battles that aren't worth winning. My peace is not up for negotiation. And let's be real. We've all wasted at least one night writing the perfect paragraph-long text message, hitting backspace 50 times, thinking, this will finally make them understand. But does it ever work? No. It just drains you more. Sarah understood that. And when she chose silence, she chose herself. The Stoics would call this indifference. Not coldness, but clarity. Epictetus wrote, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our interpretations of them." Which means the chaos wasn't her partner's lies anymore. It was her reaction to them. By walking away without a word, she stopped giving his noise weight. She chose her energy over his drama. 5 years later, I saw Sarah again. And to my surprise, she looked younger, brighter, more alive than when I had last seen her in class. It wasn't the kind of glow you buy in a store. It was the radiance of someone who had shed the weight of endless explanations. Silence hadn't aged her. It had renewed her. The girl who once drowned in defense now radiated strength without saying a word. Here's the truth. The silent exit is not weakness. It is mastery. It's the final act of reclaiming your story without giving them a single sentence to twist. Practical action. If you're caught in a draining dynamic right now, try the one last word test. Before you respond to that text, that rumor, that bait, ask, if this were the last word I ever gave them, would it bring me peace? If the answer is no, then give no word at all. Let silence be your statement. And here's another practice. Pick one area of your life where you've been over-explaining, maybe with a colleague, maybe with family, and for 1 week, simply act without announcing. Let results, not words, prove your point. Because sometimes the most devastating thing you can say is nothing. So let me ask you, who in your life still hears your voice when what they really need is your silence? 8th rule. You become untouchable. There comes a moment when betrayal no longer chains you, not because you forgot it, not because the scar vanished, but because you've grown so far beyond it that those who hurt you can't even keep up. That's when you become untouchable. Kai told me about the years after he walked away from revenge. At first, life was painfully slow. Days in the workshop, carving wood by hand. Nights of silence, hunger gnawing at him more than the cold. People mocked him openly. "He's finished," they whispered in the marketplace. "Look at him. Alone. Broke. Forgotten." But Kai kept building. One plank at a time, one chair, one table, one piece of work. After another, his calloused hands didn't chase applause, they chased excellence. Slowly, his craft began to travel further than he did. A neighbor mentioned his tables to a merchant. A merchant told a noble. And soon, Kai's name reached places he had never set foot in. When I met him at 34, during the storm of my own collapse, I was stunned. The man I stumbled upon in that forest wasn't bitter, wasn't broken. He was standing tall in a workshop, alive with orders, respected by many, admired by all. His name carried weight, not because he shouted, but because he endured. And then there was the old betrayer. still in the same corner of town, still telling the same tired stories, still hoping someone would notice him. Nothing had changed. The man who once seemed powerful was now frozen in time, trapped by the same smallness that made him betray in the first place. Kai didn't need to confront him. He didn't need to point, accuse, or prove. The contrast spoke louder than any accusation. One man had risen, the other had stood still. One built a life of dignity, the other kept sinking in his own stagnation. That's what real, untouchable power looks like. Not revenge, not proving, not shouting, just rising so high that their betrayal becomes irrelevant background noise. And let's be honest for a second, sometimes the sweetest revenge is when people search your name years later, expecting failure, only to find you thriving in silence. It's the human version of that glow-up photo. Except this one isn't about looks. It's about peace, presence, and respect earned over time. The Stoics understood this. They taught that true victory is not over others, but over yourself. And when you master that, the rest of the world has no choice but to see the difference. Practical action. Try the contrast test. Ask yourself, if I keep building myself for 5 years, where will I stand? And if they keep repeating their same patterns for 5 years, where will they be? Then let that vision fuel you every day. And here's another exercise. The next time you're tempted to compare yourself to someone who betrayed you, flip the lens. Instead of asking, "Are they ahead of me?" ask, "How much stronger am I than the version of me who once tolerated them?" That's the only comparison that matters. Because being untouchable doesn't mean no one tries to hurt you. It means no wound can stop your growth, and no betrayer can keep pace with your rise. So let me ask you, if Kai could rise from betrayal into honor and respect, what's stopping you from building the kind of life where those who hurt you can only watch from far behind? Real power isn't in revenge. It's in rising so high that betrayal becomes nothing but background noise. The final echo. Betrayal will always hurt. Silence will always feel heavy at first. And letting go will always feel like losing something. But as I've learned from Kai and from my own storms, every ending is also a seed. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove your worth to those who couldn't see it. You don't need to wait for karma to punish them. Life already has that covered. Your task is simpler but harder. To rise, to rebuild, to choose peace over noise, dignity over drama, clarity over chaos. Remember this, their betrayal was never the final chapter. It was just the edit life made so your story could grow stronger. So the next time you feel the weight of silence, don't mistake it for weakness. It is your shield, your teacher, your doorway into freedom. One day, those who underestimated you will look back and realize they didn't break you. They revealed you. And when they do, they will see what Kai became. They will see what I became. And if you choose it, they will see what you are becoming too. Because the loudest statement you'll ever make is not a scream, not a fight, not even a goodbye. It's the life you build quietly, day by day, until you are untouchable. So I leave you with this question. When the dust settles, will you still be explaining yourself? Or will you already be living so high that no explanation is ever needed again? If Kai's journey and my story spoke to you today, subscribe, not to follow me, but to walk with a community choosing peace over revenge, clarity over chaos. Every new step you take is proof you are not alone.